Welcome to Lakehead University's Reconciliation, Learning Truths and Enacting Responsibilities event, an exploration of land as teacher in the context of Indigenous science. We are happy that you're able to join us today. Denise Baxter, Indigenous, Makwadodim, Martin Falls, and Donjiba. My name is Denise Baxter, Vice Provost, Indigenous Initiatives at Lakehead University, and I will be your MC for this event. Lakehead University respectfully acknowledges its campuses are located on the traditional lands of Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson Spirit Treaty of 1850, and that the campuses in Aurelia are located on the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nations territory, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy, signatory to the Williams Treaty. In Lakehead's commitment to social justice and social responsibility, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls for action and University Canada's principles on Indigenous education. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendation to build capacity for intercultural understanding, empathy, and mutual respect has become a guiding principle for the commitments Lakehead has made in both Northwestern Ontario and Simcoe County, and will continue to guide our efforts into the future. Before we begin, I would like to share an important notice of video recording of the Reconciliation, Learning Truths and Enacting Responsibilities event, an exploration of land as teacher in the context of Indigenous science. Participants are reminded that this online event is being recorded. We are doing this to preserve a record of the event in the university's archives and to publicize and promote Lakehead University. By attending, you are agreeing to be included in the recording and its public dissemination in any media now known or later developed anywhere in the world in perpetuity. Any questions that you as participants might have can be entered into the Zoom chat, and we will have time for Q&A towards the end of the presentation. We thank you for joining us today. Our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Willow Curthoys says, "It is time to shake up and expand beyond the Eurocentric construct of science, which currently monopolizes education. Shake up does not mean to throw out. Rather, to shake up is to arrive with innocence, to re-examine with self-honesty, and to be willing to let go of what no longer serves all of life. This narrative-based exploration of land as teacher offers a humble invitation to remember we are the land and to consciously trust the heart as a place of sophisticated intelligence. Land encompasses everything: rocks, soil, water, plant beings, birds, sky, insects, the wind, flowing processes, communication via fungi, the stars, sun and moon, and all people, all that resonates with meaning. The mixed boreal forests and the living shores of Gitchigami, Lake Superior, continue to provide daily whole person sustenance, mind, body, and soul. These land communities and the natural areas at Lakehead University Thunder Bay play a vital role in shaping inspired pedagogical praxis." Welcome, Dr. Curthoys.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here today with everyone, and I look forward to the sharing, and also to our conversation that comes through with that. So I'm going to put on my slides. Are those up now? Just checking that this is the slide show.
Yes, we can see them.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. I wanted to bring us together as a community of learners here, just to take a moment and invite you to close your eyes, to take a few deep breaths, to come into this place, this circle together. I invite you to feel your feet touching the earth, feeling grounded, and the earth reaching up to touch you, to feed you. Bringing this energy up into our heart center, this incredible brain, this place of knowing. And then reaching up into the stars, the source, the great mystery of life. And in this place, I'd like you just to think about a time when the land really grabbed you, captured your attention, and maybe shook you up, maybe brought you to a new awareness. Just really feel into that, to that moment, into that deeper knowing. And perhaps there's feelings that are linked with that: gratitude, forgiveness, surrender, humbleness. Just take a few more deep breaths, focusing on our heart center and coming together as one here. Thank you. So this deep knowing, really, you'll see, is one of the threads that pulls this humble sharing today. And I really wanted to emphasize humble and grateful. Really am honored to be here, and humbled in the sense of, what do I know? Who am I to speak about Indigenous science? And humbled by all the teachings that have come through from the land and guided me, and the people and the wisdom keepers. And I think we all walk with this funny paradox of, I know nothing and I know everything, in the sense when we connect to this source, the vast place. So we're always walking this beautiful back and forth of knowing nothing, and the smallness in a way of our humanness. And yet when we reach up and connect into that oneness, we know everything. So a humble and grateful back and forth. So I wanted to share with you this exploration of land as teacher, which is, well, I suppose it's been ongoing my whole life, but in an academic setting the last 25 years. And Lakehead University's offered such a beautiful opportunity to explore that. And as I'm coming to know Indigenous science, and other sciences feed into this as well, but with our focus today, I'll be highlighting Indigenous science as, again, in a humble way, as I've come to know it. And I look forward to being challenged on that, and to be expanded on that. I would like to acknowledge this incredible land that we're a part of here on the North Shore of Gitchagami. And for us all, just to take a moment to recognize the land that holds us, that feeds us, that nourishes us, and to acknowledge the original stewards of the land and the ongoing stewards of the land. For when we drink clean water, when we breathe clean air, when we look at the beauty and the diversity, it's thanks to the stewards of the land. So my deepest gratitude to Anishinaabe and Métis people of this area, and to all the wisdom keepers. Wanted to extend a little bit more gratitude to my parents, who raised me to see that all life is valuable, to see that, plants are humans, or beings, and to see beauty in life. Gratitude for the land, from my childhood city background in Edmonton, where I came from, and to my current home, where I'm very blessed to live on the shores of Gitchagami. For all my mentors, I could fill up slides and slides of all the mentors who've come along. I'm really grateful for my colleagues and students in the School of Outdoor Recreation, Parks and Tourism. It's such a caring and open community where we can explore together and stumble and fall, and then learn together, and keep becoming and expanding who we are as people. So thank you to all of you. I'm grateful beyond words for the Indigenous people's spirit of generosity and sharing. given everything that's happened, like to still have that spirit of generosity to share, just, you know, and for all the wisdom keepers, and especially the land, our vast self, the source, which is a place for me of compassion, a place I can always go that's not judging, always accepts me as I am, and allows for this becoming. One person that really kept kind of coming into my consciousness as I was preparing this sharing for all of you was Elder Ernie Quandabens. I had the privilege and pleasure of getting to know Ernie, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years ago, where we were asked by the Office of Aboriginal Initiatives to develop a sign for the Sweat Lodge ceremonial area. And he was the keeper of the Sweat Lodge at the time and guided us. It was 2 different classes that were involved in that. And, you know, he was definitely part of my shake up and wake up. And, whoa, you know, like I didn't realize how marinated I was in westernized thinking. So with his beautiful wisdom and playful poke, like get out of your mind once in a while, get into your heart. There's many more ways to look at things, and just this beautiful, gentle, strong way of teaching. So that was the beginning of the relationship. But a few years, maybe 5 years ago now, Elder Ernie Quandabens spoke at the Spring Indigenous conference, and he opened up our gathering, and I'm paraphrasing what he said here, but it stayed in my heart. The knowledge is a sacred gift, and it lands at our feet, you know. And shall we pick up this gift of knowledge, or will we leave it? First choice, If we pick up, how shall we use this gift in a way that honors and sustains all of life? So, as an academic, and students, lifelong students, this teaching really humbles me again of what a privilege it is to be part of knowledge making, and to be ever looking at, is this the truth? Are there other truths? And to keep weaving in things, and to always be using knowledge, not for our own self gain, but for the greatest good of all of life. So my big thank you to Ernie Quandabens for all the ways he's helped me become more human, And who am I? Well, I'm a mama. I have 2 amazing young adults now, my son Arthur and my daughter Caitlin. And I'm a grandmother, 2 beautiful grandchildren, Arlo and Rosie. And due to COVID, they all live with me, not my son, but my daughter and her husband, and then my 2 grandchildren all live with me, which is amazing and challenging and amazing. And such great teachers. And they were born here. My grandchildren were born here on the shores of Kitchigami, and we do our best to raise them in the teachings of the land. As Denise introduced me, I constantly fed by the land, and just so blessed to live in this beautiful place we call, Thunder Bay. And I apologize, I know it's Anameki, but I don't know how to say bay in Anishinaabe. But these lands with the clean waters and so much sustenance. I also love working with the plants and the medicines that the plants offers, and on all levels. And for me, that medicine is in the relationship. So that's an ongoing love of mine, and I enjoy sharing that with students as well. So just a little bit of, who I am. And the source, the vast self, the universal intelligence, whatever name we choose to call the mystery, it certainly is everything to me, and feeds me in all that I do. and coming through that, the land as my mentor, as my friend, as my source of inspiration, joy, even my, say, my lover, and that deep, just the deep, intimate connection with the land. And I come to this place of trying to know the land and this vast self, the source, through humility, which requires surrendering, and in a way that opens us up to this knowledge. And I love the idea, and I seek to understand this idea, not just in words, but in practice, that our limit is proportionate to how much we see ourselves as separate from the land or separate from the vast source. And conversely, our potential is proportional to when we connect with this oneness. So this is my lifelong journey. Is, again, these can just be words, but what do they mean in life? What do they mean as an academic? What do they mean as a mother and a grandmother and a community member? So, the action part of reconciliation, right? The action. So every day, I guess it's been about 2 years now, I've started a practice of taking time to connect with the source each day. I'm up before sunrise preparing. And I don't know about you, but I can wake up in the morning and already, bam, bam. It's just like a soundtrack starting to go. So as I prepare to meet the source and drink in the wisdom, there's a lot of clearing that needs to happen, and coming into this place of innocence. And so I drink water, a teaching from a Lakota elder. So I drink water, and I was gifted a drum and an eagle feather for my land teachings, and they're with me. I smudge and I drum, and more cleansing and asking for purity of heart to receive. And then I do, I'm a bit of an eclectic person. I do the Heart Sutra, which comes from Buddhism, and it's very powerful. I think partly because it's in Sanskrit that my mind can not engage with it, and also the movements of it are really help me to remember. So I just wanted to share with you because it's so powerful to have the movement as well. So there's a bowing down, the gate gate, and paragate comes into this place of intuition and opening up the heart center. And I was taught that this is the sword of truth. So I'm opening up my heart, but also having that self-honesty, that self-wisdom to say, is that true? Is that not true? As we navigate knowledge and get rid of illusions and untruths that make us less human. And from there's Parasamgate, which, and I like this Heart Sutra because you get your eyes open, it's not like some meditations. And so you look up to sometimes the stars are still out when I'm up there or whatever, looking up to the great mystery. And then Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha, you pull it back into your heart. So it's really powerful to have that movement reminding me every day as I sing that. So I've been doing this about 2 years now. I was really quite embarrassed at first, and sometimes boats go by, and but as I do it more and more, I just, I want to share it. And so I guess in the summer, my daughter suggested to me, Mom, why don't you do a podcast? And I'm like, what? I can do a podcast. That's way out of my comfort zone. But I thought, well, it resonated with me again, that deep knowing, like there was something there. So, and writing is such a slow process for me, whereas, the words, the teachings come in from the land. So I've been playing around with that over the summer to just share my practice with people. And again, in this place of innocence, in real surrender what comes through. And I never know what will come through in the day. So I offer that to people. It's my way of serving life. That's my question. How may I, serve life today? And this, this feeds it. As I mentioned, it's a podcast, on Spotify. It's free. The whole essence of it is relationship and coming into more meaningful relationship with the land, and sharing those teachings with people. So that's happening. It's a different way as an academic to share my research, but my research is from the land. It's about the language of the land, which I'm coming to know is the language of our hearts. And it's that place where we're all connected. And this is a language, that comes beyond the rational mind, which I'll talk more about today. It's a resonance, that deep knowing. It's the language of light. It's the language of sound. So that's the research I do, trying to come to know this language and help others connect with that as well. All in again, the serving life and coming into deeper relationship with self, with community, with the land. So one of the names I've come across for the, what I would call the source of the vast mind is the metaphoric mind. And I wanted to share a few pieces here from my exploration. So Dr. Gregory Kahate, he's written a book on native science as well as many others. But he speaks of the metaphoric mind as part of the earth mind. It's inclusive, it's expansive in its processing of experience and knowledge. It's about and rather than either or. The metaphoric mind invented the rational mind, and in turn, the rational mind invented language, the written word, abstraction, and eventually the disposition to control nature rather than to be part of nature. Ooh, that was such a big, big shake up for me. What? The metaphoric mind created this mind, because I was brought up that, the rational mind is everything. And I have to say, there's part of me that's very angry. I feel like I was brainwashed, and now I'm brainwashing myself. And that's okay, though, but again, it's not throwing out the rational mind, but it's putting the rational mind, if you will, in the rational mind's place. And I love how Dr. Kahete speaks of the rational mind as the little brother, the metaphoric mind is the big brother. And some of the little brother just got a little bit too arrogant and started to run the show. So it's a coming back into the proper positioning, if you will, and just remembering that the rational mind came out of this earth mind, and when they work together, that's powerful. The birds are coming in just as I'm speaking. Little juncos. Another one of my teachers, beautiful painted arrow, Joseph Riel, a shaman, and his, I read his book over, and he's written a lot of books, but the one book, Sound, Native Teachings, in Visionary Art, I read it over and over and over, trying to bring in his wisdom into my life, and the importance of sound, that we come from sound, this vibration, this resonance. And I think we all know that. And if we could take it to an example where you've heard a piece of music and you're just transported somewhere, you just gone, that. And so everything does have a vibration or resonance. Everything does have a song, a sound, and this is the language of the heart and of the vast mind. So he says, sound is much more than a work of the intellect. It is an experience in personal and cosmic transformation. And that's, the singing of the heart sutra, like singing, singing that ancient sound current sutra thread. So powerful, and so powerful to sing it in a language that bypasses my rational mind. So these words, sound is an experience in personal and cosmic transformation. I'm still sinking into that. Yeah, it'll be a lifelong journey. And I love it, just to keep going in into this, into these deep teachings. So this daily land participation, starting the morning before sunrise and as the sun comes up, and sometimes I'm there, maybe an hour, sometimes I'm there for hours, if I have that spaciousness and things are happening. So everything comes from that for me. The teachings from the land might come into the classroom that day. They might move my writing that day. I hope they shape who I am as a person too. And this, ever becoming and sharing. So, I've been deeply connected with the land since a child, and I've my PhD was on land stewardship, which is looking at the management actually of small protected areas, which, fragmented places that we're really struggling, and how do we reconnect them. So my life has been dedicated to the land, but I'd have to say it's just in these last few years as I've come to the source every morning and surrendered and come from that place that things are really starting to shift for me. So land dedicated courses that I have the privilege of teaching, the land relations, I'll talk a little bit more about that today. It's our Indigenous content course for ORPT, though I did want to acknowledge my colleagues in the School of Outdoor Recreation, Parks and Tourism that I'd say many of us are striving that Indigenous content in all our courses, and bringing truth and reconciliation, both in practice and in theory, into our classes. So, officially land relations has that IC, but really grateful for my colleagues for their sensitivity and the work that's being done. Advanced land relations, it's come out of students wanting to go deeper, and that's a 4th year course, and we really go to the edge there. We really go to the edge. And exploring things of this dance between our rational mind and the metaphoric mind. I've taught before interpretation and guiding, and again, letting the land feed that, advanced interpretation, private land stewardship, and directed studies. Occasionally I have students that really want to go even deeper into some of these areas, and that's a real honor. Kind of almost a duh statement, but gosh, we sure need to say this over and over again. Like, how do you do land practices without land, And I know I wouldn't be at Lakehead University campus in Thunder Bay without the land that's there. I just wouldn't. And I hope that we do everything in our power to protect the green spaces, the natural areas. Those are yucky words. I want the community that holds us. It holds us. These lands hold us. And they can shape every single discipline, not just, of direct parks and tourism courses. Every single discipline, the land has wisdom to offer us, and also our well-being. So I just, what can we do to care for and protect and sustain these natural landscapes? And it's really exciting to see the rewilding that's happening on campus, and Leda, big thanks to Leda with the Office of Sustainability and the rain gardens that are happening, the labyrinths. And here's our elder Mene Shikabi, just who came into the land relations class, and we get to use this beautiful space here, you know, with the labyrinth, and you can see the echinacea here. Just, you know, we were surrounded with life, you know, and it's just, you know, it's a small place transformed, and yet so many medicine plants there and beauty that's feeding us, and crickets singing, and like we're immersed in life. So even on the urban campuses, can we start to bring in more of the wild, our community, our land relations to feed us? So that's my shout out and my thank you to everyone that's working to bring more wild into our campus. So primary guidance philosophy for me is this idea that thinking and knowing are distinct. You know, they're both beautiful but distinct. You know, thinking involves the rational mind. It's mind to mind communication, and you know, tends to fade over time. You know, as we come up with new theories and things like that, new concepts, new words. Felt knowing, though, to me, these are circling truths. They rise up, they rise up, they rise up. They're in our bones. We feel their resonance. We feel that the importance of them in our whole being. And this is being to being communication, and it leaves that lasting impression. And we've given a lot more privilege to thinking at the expense of felt knowing. And it's time now to shake it up, as I said, and create spaces and ways, and shifting in our even how we are evaluated as academics. Can we make space for felt knowing? Something that, you know, maybe isn't as easily measured, you know, or produced even, because you're at surrendering to a greater power. So, you know, and I think it's starting to happen, but it's a lot more privilege needs to be given to this deeper knowing, this felt knowing. A few more words from Dr. Gregory Kahate, just to, you know, go a little deeper with Native science here. So rather than seeking to control natural reality, Native science or Indigenous science focuses its attention upon subtle inner natures wherein lie the rich textures and the nuances of life. This is exactly what chaos theory shows us. Small, apparently insignificant things play major roles in the way a process unfolds. Indeed, Native science may be said to be the science of the subtle. Not so easy to measure, not so easy to capture, but so important. So I wanted to, you know, share a few practices that, you know, coming from these philosophies that guide me, and the teachings from the source, teachings from the land. Wanted to share those with you. They're not all of them, so maybe this will come up in question and answer for conversation, is, you know, which of these resonate with you. Maybe you're practicing these and we have a community here to share, and you know, what's blaringly missing maybe that you'd like to speak up to. So I just kind of thinking about ways of being here as an academic, as a teacher, that can start to privilege that metaphoric mind more. Again, not throwing out the rational mind, but bringing them in a more sustainable and life-serving balance. So some of the ways that I found to be really important are to meet students where they are at, you know, without judgment, but rather with encouragement, and just that the way the land does, you know, the land accepts us where we're at. Allowing students their own individual journey. So that's really influenced how evaluation for me, like to open it up, to meet students where they're at and allowing them their own journey. Being coyote, being the trickster and gently poking and playing and taking students to their edges in a safe way that allows them to move and expand. Creating a safe learning space to welcome resistance as places of growth. Creating many opportunities for students to participate directly with the land. Oh, more and more and more, And I'm so grateful to the Thunder Bay campus for the land that we have there, the river and the diversity of places. Explicitly honoring the land as sentient being. So just, again, people can take it or leave it where they're at, but saying that explicitly and honoring that, role modeling respect, humility, and vulnerability, and also giving back to the land whenever we can. Encouraging students to trust their felt knowing, their inner wisdom. And they find that hard, like what? Recognizing that we are the land. Humbly acknowledging that all wisdom comes from our vast self. Bringing in elders and other wisdom keepers, in person, through books, through podcasts. There's so many ways we can do that these days. And offering knowledge from many, many perspectives. So those are a few of the practices that as I reflected, that are helping to shape how I do research and how I show up for students, and show up for myself and for my family as well. So hopefully we can come back to this, or other things that you'd like to talk about. I did have some specific examples, I guess, that puts those boxes into oh, I just lost that there. I'm gonna see if I can go back. No. Okay, that's okay. The first one was just me bringing the land to the class. Again, bringing in wisdom keepers. I share a video in the advanced land relations, and asking students again what surprised you, what was more meaningful for them, so that we have this safe place to explore. And I really encourage students to offer where their barriers are and their resistance. Really work hard to bring in the voice of Indigenous people in the readings. And in the reading engagement assignments, again, this openness and just a couple of questions like what resonated with you, what felt most alive for you. So coming back into that felt knowing, the aha moments. And really importantly, as I mentioned, where were the challenges and where did you feel your feathers ruffled, like let's go there gently and look at that and put some light in those places. Love the work of Robin Walker, brilliant. So bringing in these writings directly from Indigenous people. Land time as much as possible, that was challenging with COVID, but we did it, just again through, I'll share more about that, but when we can, like out on the land, slow land time, like not trying to cram everything in. That's been really important, creating space, so we can be there, so we can take it in, being intentional with the land, and helping students calm their busy minds, because until we go there, how do you take it in? And students have just said, I'm so frustrated, I want to connect, but I don't know how. I don't know how to turn that off, So slowing down, being patient, and being quiet enough, as Linda Hogg says, like to pay attention to the story that's out there. And there, you'll never go out to the land and not come back without a story. If we, they're out there, we just need to slow down and tune in. A few more words on the metaphoric mind, being the oldest mind. That's, wow, this just blows me away. This mind that's been evolving for 3 million years, like there's some wisdom there, Yeah. I think million should be maybe billion. It doesn't even seem enough, But then you think on campus, we do have billion-year-old rocks, If you want to be with the rocks on Lakehead's campus, go sit with the slate, along the river. And coming away from this idea as nature as objects, but rather a dynamic, ever-flowing river of creation, inseparable from our own perception. We are the land, we are the land. To keep working with that, and that just segues into this, the importance of sensory awareness. Paying attention to all the ways that we can take in the metaphoric mind through creativity or physical senses, art, and all these various ways. So creating space in the valuation, in the teaching for sensory awareness has been really important. In many of my courses, we bring in core routines, and I kudos to Wilderness Awareness School, which is founded on Indigenous knowledges and practices. There's 13 of them. I'll just speak to 2 of them, but they really are ancient ways of being with the world, and we're bringing those maybe into modern ways, and they help us reconnect with the land, and I think really important, maximize our innate ability to connect, because we are born with this ability. It's just being squished out of us, so we're just moving away the barriers and the false notions that humans are number one, we know everything. The rational mind is everything. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. All these things, as we clear them away, we can come into these teachings. So just 2 of the core routines. Story of the day. This was really important when I'm teaching for Zoom, like asking students to bring in their story of the day from the land, and me bringing in my stories. And we did, we brought in that resonance and that song of the land. Ideally we're out on the land sharing the stories, where those stories live, where they live. And it's just a profound way to weave together a course and students' teachings, and to give the land a voice. And it links to this idea of native science. It doesn't, the science doesn't separate art and science. No, art, story, community, dance, ritual, technologies, everything, it's all one. And so story plays, and art plays such a big role there. And how do we tap into our metaphoric mind? Words by Stephen Herod Bernard here. Sorry, Booner here. Let me say that again. Stephen Herod Booner, one of my teachers. All you need is your natural capacity to feel, the curiosity and the wonder of your childlike self, and the willingness to never stop your questing. And we all have that and this might not seem, well, we can't do that in academic setting, but no, this is the pathway into the metaphorical mind. And in my advanced land relation class, I asked students, like each of them took one of a core routine and went deep with it and then shared with us. So I said, well, how would your 5-year-old do that core routine? How would your 12-year-old do that? And, at first there was a bit of resistance, but when the students that took on that challenge, they had breakthroughs, just huge breakthroughs and releases when they allowed that childlike self to approach the practices. Gratitude, I would say this core routine is the foundation of all of them, it underlies everything, but the rational mind and the metaphoric minds, work together. When the conditioning of separation is suspended during play, meditation, ritual, and other modes of spontaneous thinking. And I think gratitude, I know gratitude sets the stage for that. And I wanted to speak to this. I think it's very, very important with the stress that our students are feeling, that the stress that we're feeling. And here we can see a blending of Western science and Indigenous sciences. If you look into the work in cardiology, it's we're 40 years old, very sophisticated. Now that we have the instruments to measure our electromagnetic fields, like all these teachings from Indigenous science, like it is about the heart, and we are connected. And so there's really amazing research going on. I encourage you to check that out. with the Heart Math Institute. So when we don't have our mind and our hearts connected, we're in a state of coherence. We're stressed. We can't think well. We're not kind, you know, like we're in that place. But when we bring ourselves into coherence, simply as like we did at the beginning, hopefully, like just through connecting to place, and they start to sync up. You know, we could call that in the flow. But our you know, we think better. We're tapping actually into this bigger place, and our stress levels go down. Our immune systems are better. I mean, it's just profound, the implications of heart-mind coherence. And I would say this is our challenge right now, our responsibility to bring that in more and more. And on a personal note, you know, as I do my meditation in the morning, this was actually from this morning, this picture I took, and there's these ducks. They've known me since birth, you know, well, not, I wasn't there when the eggs came open, but, you know, when they started swimming, there's this woman on the shores, right? They just come to know me, and they just, you know, I'm part of their life. They're part of mine. And it's such profoundness when we get to connect in those ways, you know, with wildlife. So it's back to this heart-mind coherence, because we're actually radiating out peace. We're radiating, and it can be measured, you know. It's, you know, and yogic science has known this. And so the ducks, they know I'm not going to harm them. We're in one place together, and things just start happening, you know. The teachings I've received from these ducks over the summer, you know, is profound. A few more slides so we can open it up for conversation, because I really love to hear your thoughts and your questions. Just to read students' responses, you know, of how they've transformed when they're given these opportunities to connect with the land and to trust themselves. You know, a feeling of peace, a connecting with who they are in a bigger way. You know, some students like, whoa, is this for real? You know, when I say the land is their teacher and they're going to go out and find a place, they're just like, is this some kind of trick, you know, and struggles, you know. But when they jump in and give, you know, 13 weeks of trying, they go, now you know, I'm starting to understand. Some of them saying, I feel guilty. I'm not doing anything. You know, I should be out there working. I should be doing my homework, you know, like I can't just sit here. Well, you know, and when they finally again surrender into that, wow, what comes through is profound. But that's some of the teaching in our institutions, right? More and more and more, busy, go. I don't have time to be with the land. So again, I think our responsibility as teachers, as academics, as colleagues, to start to supporting land as our collective mentor. Direct experiences and conversations with the land are foundational to serving life. I think that's what education is for. I think that's what research is for. For me, it's our duty to care for, nurture, and honor existing natural areas, to rewild damaged areas, and to create more places for calm and for quiet. And I also say, as you know, as an institution, as people, as community members, we need to value land time as real and essential work, you know, for our personal well-being, for our professional well-being and growth and expansion, and for the well-being of all students. And we need to make more and more time to connect and participate with the land. You know, comes back to humility, to surrender. You know, I wanted to close with these questions because this is about reconciliation. So we want to shift, right? So how may we come together to create a more inclusive, peaceful, and beautiful world? What shifts will you commit to? And how might you participate with the land today? Not tomorrow, today. So Chimagwich, for your attention, for being here. My Indigenous roots are Celtic. I can't speak my language yet, so I'm not even going to try there. And, you know, the Gaelic, and a big thank you. So I'll open it up now for any questions or comments that you might have.
Wonderful, miigwech. That was really an interesting talk. And as you were talking, and the student comments really, I think, were things that, as a student myself, really resonated with me. When we cut the busy out, we actually create that time and space to, I like that image of that wiggle, because when everything's lined up and you're just in a, I always just use the term a good headspace.
Yeah.
But when you're in that good alignment, you know, things really do flow easily.
Yeah.
So we did have a question, which, as you were talking about, obviously land was a big part of this. And just for my own personal self, I'm going to indulge just a bit. But while I was thinking about, you know, the work of tanning hides in the winter with my family and some friends, and how everybody comes together, you know, it's hunting season now. So, you know, sometimes just getting the hides, or my cousin called me and said, I have a brain because her cousin shot a moose. And, you know, just all these ways of that continual cycle of, I will call it land, but everything that is around and on and in and under and around that land, and how it, it's just a never ending, it is a never ending cycle that we live within. And certainly is a time for me when I really do come together with people in a more, I guess maybe in a more intimate way. And then thinking, this summer, of course, didn't happen, but often I go blueberry picking with my aunts. And, you know, you sit outside and you're kind of crouched down and you're picking for 5 hours and things hurt, but you kind of push the hurt aside because you're focused just on that work of being in that space, and being part of that space is really something that I love. We did have a question from Bernadine, who I think is from Alberta, if I'm correct in that. And the question was, can you speak a little bit about land back incentives around the concept of land is reconciliation?
Oh, well, that's a big one. And I would say, like, in the private land stewardship class that I teach, the whole rise up and Indigenous ways of conservation, like, frames that course now. Like, we start with that. I can't speak to maybe the specific program you're talking about, but it's another one of those big shakeups, right? Like, giving the land back, and then Indigenous. So we're seeing Indigenous land trusts coming up. It's so excited. And again, and I can put this document, the We Rise Up Together. I can add that in the list. But you know, what's the Indigenous led conservation? You know, this is the path forward, right? I don't know if I answered your question, Bernadine, but yeah, it's just like, these openings need to happen, and they are happening, and that's exciting. But more, you know, we need it happening, I'd say, faster. We're behind, you know.
Mhm. It's like here, I'm in Thunder Bay, and so we have the, I guess maybe the benefit, I would call it, but the opportunity that I can literally walk probably 10 minutes from my house, and I'm surrounded by the bush. Or I can drive, you know, an hour north of the city, and I really don't run into anybody out there unless I choose to. And in terms of, you know, being out on the land, and, you know, your beautiful pictures of just the morning with the birds and the water, or in the winter, you know, with the snow and the rivers. All of those things are really accessible to us. And talking with my relations down in, you know, from Rama First Nation and Christian Island, they are in a very different kind of space, because there's so many people down there that where their traditional land would have been, like my communities up north on the Albany River, and, you know, pretty much other than one end, you only get there by plane, or if you take a long river trip through, you know, either a couple of rivers or one main river after driving 5 hours northwest of here. you then get to the river. And so to get into that space of, I mean, other than a small bit just on the lake shore, but to get kind of to that space without humans in that space isn't as easy as an option for people in the more densely populated areas, and where their land is not their open land anymore. You know, there's settlers that have cabins on there, and you know, you look across the lake and there's condominiums built up, and so the natural landscape isn't as natural as it, you know, would have been 100 years ago. And so do you have any recommendations for how, within the concepts that you spoke about, that how some of your, you know, you talked about the metaphoric mind, but how you can create that space perhaps within those highly densely populated areas?
Yeah. Like, and again, this, you know, initiative is, I think Bernadine's question alluded to, like bringing back the land where we can and rewilding land. But in the meantime, you know, there's a lot to be said to creating quiet environments, even internally, you know, inside buildings. And, you know, even bringing plants in, like there's a universe in plants, you know, like creating indoor spaces where, you know, a part of the land can at least be with us. And you know, I've had profound journeys with my geranium plant, you know, when we open up, that possibility is there. But you know, yeah, that that speaks strongly to me what you said, Denise. And you know, I went to visit my son on the traditional land of the Comox people on Vancouver Island, and I was doing my morning podcast, and I had a hard time to find places where the traffic wasn't there, where the noise wasn't there. And that's still fairly natural place. So I just thought, like, what if, you know, like I'm in the city, but where am I going to find these places? And I just think it's our duty to start bringing them back in, you know, like, and you know, wherever we can. Like, and back to the Comox First Nation, my son's apartment overlooked a river, and then there was a lot of work going on, and he said, like, that the Comox First Nation actually owned that land, and it was all pavement, and they were like jackhammering, and you know, first the noise was disturbing, but they're bringing it back, right? They're bringing it back to a natural place. And so, wow, you know, that's really exciting when I see stuff like that, you know. And you know, this speaks to me to hope, like of hope, like not to go down the drain of, oh my God, we're losing everything, because we get them paralyzed in that place, but to keep celebrating communities that are doing that, bringing it back, you know, rain gardens, taking out pavement, you know, all these small things that connect us, and really celebrating those. Like I think we need stories of hope, and action, hope and action, hope and action. And yeah, so yeah, and you know, it pains me to think, what if I lived in downtown Toronto, you know, but I would find a place, you know, I would seek it out. I would find it.
Funny you say that. I had an opportunity to connect with a gentleman from in Toronto, and I actually was staying at a friend's house for the summer, and it was her roommate, but he worked at one of the Indigenous men's shelters, and he brought me to a garden that was built and what used to be an old river, but was now a road that ran north and south. And it was a medicine garden and surrounded by big trees, because Toronto does have a lot of treed areas. But we sat in that garden, and he actually could, I was teaching a course, and he agreed to be my interview for the day. And we did a recording in that garden. And even though we were surrounded by city, there was trees and plants and butterflies, and it was a small oasis in the middle of a concrete jungle, as it were. And I see Bernadine has put tiny urban backyard for us. And certainly those, you know, those are other ways to do that. So yeah, I appreciate it. I'm listening to the lawnmower outside here because someone's cutting the grass, I think, outside my window.
And I got machines going out mine, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, this was wonderful. I just would love to just express our thanks on behalf of Indigenous initiatives and, the work that you're doing at University with our students and your colleagues. I noticed somebody had spoken about maybe connecting with the Faculty of Social Work to bring some of this forward. And I was actually thinking a lot about that body-mind connection, particularly when we're working with youth and finding that space of centering your mind and your heart and different ways we do that. I had the opportunity on Sunday to go with my daughter to the powwow at Lake Helen, and we had an hour and a bit drive there. But once we got there, we were surrounded by those big hills, that range of black rock. I don't know what kind of rock it is, but and the poplar trees and the birch trees were all yellow, and the air had that cool feel to it, and you could see the lake just over. And then we were dancing, and we were she had her moccasins on. I wore runners because it was a little bit muddy that day, but you were just on the ground and with the drum and the beat of the drum, and it was a very spiritual place of coming together. And we were only going to stay for a few hours because we both had homework to do that night and schoolwork to get done, but we ended up staying right through till after the feast at 6:30 before we made our way home, because it was just such a moment of breathing and being in a really good place that we didn't want to leave and drive home. So I the things that you were speaking of, I was really thinking about how that heart comes together and how it impacts your whole physical, spiritual self.
Yeah, and then we radiate that out.
Yeah, I see Leslie King has one comment before we wrap up, because I know we're a couple minutes over, but Leslie, go ahead. You'll have to unmute, or maybe Anna will have to let you. There we go.
Okay, I just had a quick comment about the land being a teacher. I had an experience here in Red Lake, Ontario, where a provincial government agency was going to expand their building on this site, but it was discovered that there was human remains there, and they went through an archaeological dig, and during that dig, they found stuff that could only come from like 1,000 miles away. And so that land, what they found in that land reminded me or taught me that the original peoples, that we traveled so far, like we had so many connections over such long distances, and it's something I hadn't really thought about. And finding those artifacts there really brought that out to me. So that little bit of archaeology work gave me a teaching as well about the land, and I guess how it holds so many teachings for us. So I just thought I'd share that.
Well, thank you, Leslie.
Oh, so true. Well, thank you for that. We have, just so you know, Willow, we have people from Alberta, obviously throughout Ontario here, north and south. And I just want to let everybody know that we will have the talk up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. And then if you're interested in other talks, you can check those out at Lakehead U Indigenous, and we have an events page there. So we have tried to have events happening on a regular basis, and we bring people from, in our territory regional here, but from across the country and across the world. So we really do focus in on privileging Indigenous thought in these spaces and creating that space for that to happen. So Dr. Kurthroys, on behalf of the Indigenous Initiatives Department at Lakehead University, I'd like to say Chimigwech for your time today, your preparation, and really sharing, I know which is just a little drop in that big lake of knowledge, but still it's a valuable drop. Every drop is of course an important drop. And together, all that knowledge makes one big Gitchagami.
Thank
And
you.
so I just want to say Chimigwech for that and for joining us today.
Yeah, Chimigwech. Thanks to everybody. Such an honor.
Okay, and for tomorrow, for those of you who have a free hour at lunch, we will be continuing our Truth and Reconciliation events this week. And tomorrow we have Dr. Jessica Jerktis, who will share her talk entitled "Our Prisons, the New Residential Schools, Understanding and Teaching the Relationship Between Imprisonment and Settler Colonialism in Canada." So a bit of a different focus tomorrow, but certainly an important one. And we will continue to have speakers throughout the remainder of this week and in the weeks moving forward. So miigwech, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.